This is Counsel Cast, part of the Legal Talk Network, and I'm your host, Karin Conroy. When you face a complex case outside your expertise, you bring in a co-counsel for next-level results. When you want to engage, expand, and elevate your firm, you bring in a marketing co-counsel. In this podcast, I bring in marketing experts who each answer one big question to help your firm achieve more. Here's today's guest.
All right, I'm Paul Counts, and I'm alongside
Shreya Banerjee.
Hey guys, I'm so excited that you are back. I feel like I just interrupted your intro. Please finish.
No, you're good. No, we're just so excited to be here. We're just excited to be back on the show. We've been, we do a lot of consulting, training, and helping businesses, save money and get more leads and navigate this crazy world online. I mean, there's so much coming at people these days that we always need to be on top of it.
I want to add that our first episode, which was going on 2.5 years ago or so, has been our most popular episode. So if you haven't seen that one, it's a throwback. You can go and see what we all looked like 2.5 years ago.
We look the same.
Wow. Yeah, we look younger now.
I love it.
But that one was all about getting free traffic from Google. So of course that was popular because it sounded like we had the golden ticket, in which it's a lot of like solid tips. It was not just clickbait. There was some really good stuff, very SEO focused. And today we are going to talk about social SEO. So the title is How Can Social SEO Generate Free Traffic and Improve Your Law Firm's Conversions? So if you're following along this year, you know that we are talking about the marketing funnel over and over and over. This is the thing that I really feel is such a great visual for how to imagine your entire marketing strategy. And marketing strategy to begin with is this kind of mysterious black box for a lot of people. Like, I don't even know where to start. So if you picture this funnel, and the way I define it, there's 6 steps, and you should be having activities and thoughts and plans and things happening throughout those 6 steps so that you're constantly growing and improving, and you've got people at different stages of your sales cycle. So let's first start by talking about what is social SEO and what is that?
Yeah.
And how does that fit into all of this?
It's actually the same thing as SEO, but it's the new term. It's the new, hot thing that everyone's talking about, thinking that's brand new. You will see so many videos on social media, on Instagram, on TikTok saying SEO is real. You got to do it. It's been there since the beginning of time, since the beginning of the internet.
Right.
And the same concepts apply.
Yeah.
You're basically creating content that, with the right keywords and phrases that people actually are looking for. Because like when we first did our episode, 2+ years ago, social media was more like, okay, did you have followers? Did you reach them with hashtags? Like that was about it.
Yes.
And now it's changed, right? It's changed dramatically where the search engines, like I call them search engines now because they really are. TikTok, Instagram, like they all have search features. I don't know if anybody's been on Instagram recently, you'll notice when you first log in, Instagram will even like prompt searches for you, not hashtag searches.
Yes.
But they'll be like how to, whatever. So they realize that their younger demographic, as people are getting older, they grew up on Instagram and TikTok and, they grew up on Facebook and all the social platforms. So now they're like, okay, people are using this like they would Google or YouTube. And so you have to have keywords in your descriptions, keywords in your captions, make your content be on point. Like you want to have your social media, like talk about similar topics, all those things. And so we'll get into more of the nitty gritty there, but that's in a nutshell what it is. And it's so important to your results.
Okay, so tell me about the difference between, in our first episode, so we didn't talk a whole lot about social, but let's pretend for a minute we did, like where things would have been then. And you kind of alluded to it a minute ago, talking about how people used to just really focus on hashtags. So what's the difference between a couple of years ago versus what you should be doing now?
Yeah, so back in the day, I would say social media was more like a dating profile where you wanted to have a presence because people will look you up to make sure that you were legit. But now it's kind of a necessity because people are looking at you up because of the content that you're providing. So you better have valuable content. And more than hashtag, you actually need to include keywords within your post. So you actually have to pay attention to what you write. It can't be, one sentence that you write in your post.
I can't remember how many times you would see a post and the content wouldn't even be content. It would just be like lines and lines of hashtags.
Exactly.
And I feel like this goes back to old school SEO way back in the day, law firms used to, in their footer, they would bury like all these locations. So you would scroll down and there would be like 4 paragraphs of every city within like a 50-mile radius of their location. And it was just like so sketchy, and it also was just messy looking. But there was a while that obviously worked because everybody was doing it. But is that kind of similar, like those locations and the SEO and kind of the evolution of social media with hashtags and SEO?
Yes, it is. Because right now, this keyword stuffing is working. I've seen several posts where people are using hashtags and a bunch of keywords at the bottom and
Yeah.
they pop up. It's history repeats itself, right? So you're going to be taken off immediately once the Google trend happens again, or Google figures it out.
Okay, so it does feel like, especially I guess on Instagram is the one I am imagining the most, but probably all of them, they are more AI driven. Also, it looks like the little, even graphically, it looks AI. So, what's the difference there in terms of how it works and how you need to think about your approach?
Are you talking about like with the AI search results on Instagram? Is that what you're referring
Yeah,
to?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's changed recently.
Yeah, it has changed. So the look and feel of it's a little different. The engine behind it is still keyword driven, right? Like content's keyword focused, content's keyword driven. The key part, even the algorithms like at Instagram and things like that, they would argue that they really want you to be focused on having content that's similar, content that has the same feel to it. They want to make sure that you're focusing on keywords that people actually want. We'll
Yeah.
talk about how to find keywords because I think that's most important is how do you find the phrases people actually want to know about?
How
Yeah.
do you do that?
Yeah, I think that there's 2 easy ways to go. Like the first approach is if you pull up Instagram and you look up like any hashtag on a certain niche market, like you go to the search bar at the top. And again, we're going back to hashtags, but they're telling you how many different posts and how popular certain things are, right? So you go in there and let's say you type
Okay.
in car accident and then you do the tag search. So there's like, if you type in a phrase, right, there's accounts, there's videos, there's, for you. And if you type in the tags, it's going to all of a sudden do a huge list for you of like, here's the most popular tags that you can go with. And so that's one way on Instagram.
Nice.
Very simple approach. And then the other one is Google. We love
Yeah.
to use Google for this. Is you go to Google, you type in again, whatever phrase it is. So car accidents, dog bites, whatever it is. And you type that in. And then what ends up happening is you get a list of people also searched for that as you scroll down the page, Google actually says people also searched for this. And so now you're getting into the realm of
Yes.
like, these are popular phrases, what people want to know. And you can carry out the same
Yeah.
thing. Like we've all seen that predictive search, like if you're on YouTube or Google and you start typing something and then it's like, oh, other people have searched for this. Well, you can do the same thing on YouTube
Yep.
and it pulls in a whole slew of additional ideas that you probably never thought of.
I've really noticed for myself, it's different. You're getting different results on those different platforms, especially for me on YouTube. It's totally different than other social media platforms. So if I didn't pay attention to those differences, I'd be really missing out on a pretty big chunk of what people are searching for over there versus on the other platforms.
It's so true.
The content can be the same, but the way people are looking for it or whoever's interested in it, they're asking it a different way.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So mixing in together social media, all these kind of new trends combined with AI, what are some of the big mistakes people are making? Because it can be very problematic if you're not doing things in the right way that Google wants you to, and the AI bots, and you're kind of thinking that you're going to cut corners, but you're actually creating a bigger problem. So what are some of these problems that people need to avoid with all of this?
Yeah, I think the number one problem people need to do is remember that we are still writing for humans. Like it's so tempting with AI to think of it as this magic button that's going to magically distribute all of our content and get everything out there in the world. At the end of the day, people connect with people. So you still have to
Right.
add in a human touch to it. Google came out with an update
Yeah.
recently. They have an EAT formula, we all know for SEO, right? And it's experience, it used to be experience and authority and trust. And then they added in, or expertise, they added in the experience part of it recently. So they added a double E to it. So they want people to share their experiences. They want that human touch in there. And I think a lot of times people are forgetting that. And a lot of times we need to remember that we need to write for people, not write about the product. We need to not sell people on the product, but we need to sell people on why they want your solution. Like in legal cases, people need a lawyer because they're struggling to pay their bills or struggling with, there's all sorts of pain points, right? For why they need to hire a lawyer. Whatever it is in their life, there's pain point. Speak to those pain points. Don't let AI necessarily pull up those pain points, or if you do, at least layer in the human touch to it. That's the biggest thing.
I feel like pain points are somehow getting lost in this whole idea. And pain points are at the core of marketing. Like this is the whole point, pun intended. Like what is driving this to begin with? Like, why are they even looking for whatever your thing is, your service, most likely if you're a law firm, but start there and don't start with, I've actually noticed a trend in a lot of our clients lately where they're sliding back into this comfortable place where they don't really want to do the challenge of the strategy and addressing those pain points. And I'm seeing a lot of them going back to this idea of designs from like years and years ago. They want skylines and stuff that doesn't have anything to do with anything. We're still talking about humans. We're still talking about their pain points. And if you're not addressing the people and their pain point, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, exactly. You absolutely are.
Let's talk about the pain points in relation to conversions. Because I know we're trying to kind of get our topic over to how to improve the whole overall conversion. Like how do you make that work?
Yeah, so we call it CRSO, conversion rate and sales optimization. Like it's the biggest thing any business can do. And that is, really the big thing is talking to your customer, like where they're at. So if you hit them where they are with their messaging, it's critical. And one of the foundational things we do is we call it a customer avatar template or a worksheet. So it's a very basic Google Doc, and anybody can create this based on what we just described. And it's a good reminder for every business. What does your ideal customer look like? And as a law firm, you're going to know what are they generally interested, what they generally are kind of like what are their general pain points? What are the reasons that they reached out to you?
Yep.
What have they tried before and failed at? Meaning like what other law firms served them wrong, or they tried to do it on their own and failed, or whatever the case is, right? So what is it that they failed at? And then the other questions you want to ask are, where are they getting their content online? Where are they researching things? So you can see how those websites are like speaking to them, appropriately. And like, it's just getting to know your customer.
That's awesome.
It's so big. Yeah. So big. If you do that, you're already 10 steps ahead of everybody else trying to use AI. We're not anti-AI. You still have to humanize things. We're not writing for robots. AI is there, but we're not writing. Robots aren't going to write you a check.
You just can't copy and paste.
Right? Yes.
That's what gets you in trouble. Just recently, multiple sites got banned by Google because they were just copying and pasting. And that's coming, if you're doing that for your social, that's going to happen to your social as well. So it's one of those things that they're telling us where they're headed. Can't copy and paste.
Exactly. Well, and like, just don't be dumb. I mean, like AI is no different than Wikipedia, than anything else that we've already known on the web. We've got a history of this. Just don't be dumb. I recently had another guest on, Gert Melek, who was talking about AI and how you can outperform it. And it's not like rocket science. But I love this analogy. And he said, using AI is like having an intern in your law firm. So think of it as this very low level person who is helpful, but you're not going to have them come in on a high level, intense strategy session. And you're also not going to like have them interface directly with your biggest, most expensive, highest revenue client. You are going to, put a bunch of filters between that intern and the client. So, and you're also going to review everything that intern does, so it's not useless. It's just, you need to make sure you're checking. And if you think of it as this kind of young science, and you need to, like just imagine it as an intern that does have some value, but obviously you're not going to have it tell you how to do brain surgery and then think that that's going to be a smart idea. Come on, let's just think this through, people. So I liked that. But okay, so let's get more into conversions, how that works broadly outside of AI. And I know you guys have been doing a lot of work on these funnels and all of that. Let's come back to, you were talking about the CRSO, the conversion rate, sales optimization. So tell me more about how that works and kind of what some tips and tricks you have for people.
Yeah, I think, and the number one, again, we go back to the basics with everything, right? And that's why we've been around so long. That's why this stuff works so well, is because you keep going back to the basics, right? So we look at things like, okay, first thing as part of the sales process is how many assets do you have? How many leads do you have currently in your business that you could potentially remarket to? And I think a lot of businesses, like I was telling Shreya this earlier, we were talking about, like, it's a kid at Christmas that's like, I need this toy, even though they have a whole bunch of toys and they need the newest, latest thing. So a lot of businesses go spend all this money, time, and energy to get new leads when they're sitting on an email list of 2,000 people that they haven't emailed in months. So I'm always like, look at your assets that you're sitting on. Let's go there first, because they already raised their hand and said they're interested. So we always start there. Like, what assets do you have that we could then move forward? And selling and sales is always about emotions. So what we tell people on our website, if people can't identify what you do in 5 to 10 seconds max, they're going to leave. Like, you have a very limited window to get their attention. So get their attention in 5 seconds, and you should know
it's getting shorter and shorter because we're the TikTok generation.
No, it's so true, Shreya. Spot on. Like,
yeah. So how do you get their attention and then convert that? And I think over time, we've just become more sophisticated when it comes to the internet. Like, I can look at it and within those 3 to 5 seconds, know if this is right for me or not. So how do you get that attention and then get an action out of it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So your headline's very important. So on your website, if your headline's not very catchy, immediately someone's going to hit the back button. If the colors are all over the place, if the picture pops up and that's the only thing you see is a picture as soon as you go on the page, they're going to hit the back button. So it needs to be very relatable. And then also we call that the above the fold content. So before anybody scrolls, whether it's on your phone or your website, what do they see there? And if they can't relate to that, they're going to hit the back button immediately.
Yep.
Okay, so what do you need to do to get them to relate to it?
Your customer avatar.
Yeah.
You have your customer avatar figured out.
Okay, so going back to like what Paul was saying a minute ago about that avatar, lay it all out, figure out why they're there, what their questions are, and answer them, right?
Yes.
Like, answer them in this is usually a place where we spend a good amount of time because it's really quick and succinct, and it takes a lot of time to dial it in so that you've got the right phrase real quick. Like, just because it's short doesn't mean that happens fast.
Yeah.
Like, getting the right words in that headline on the homepage takes a long time.
It's so important to think that through, because you have to give them the benefits of doing business with you. You have to tell it in short enough words, short as possible, but such a critical piece of it, so that those pain points are important. So when you know what they're struggling with, it's no longer good enough to say, welcome to our website, or we specialize in this. I see a lot of law firms do this. That's the worst. How do you make their life better?
Exactly. I see a lot of them leading with their own stuff, like, let me tell you where I went to law school, or, some award we won. And it's so ego driven. It's so obvious. But I think there's so much of that in the legal industry that people find that common. And so they feel like, oh, that's the right answer.
No, it's not. If you're looking for good examples, though, any of the Google properties does it amazingly. So like Google Drive, right?
Yes.
Go to the Google Drive website, read their headline, see how the pages lay out. Lay it out exactly like that.
Don't you think the best examples are probably not in the legal industry?
Oh,
yes,
100%.
absolutely.
Yeah. Where else should they look for good examples of how to do that kind of headline in the right way?
Yeah.
Google properties.
Evernote has one of the best that I've ever seen. Evernote.com. They have such a good above the fold.
Nice.
Headline.
What do they do?
So Evernote, they have just a really catchy headline that's just like very short and sweet with the call to action right above the fold. And it's just like, Evernote.com.
Nice.
If you want to look at it, like, I don't use their service, but they do such a good job of that.
I feel like there's some of those software companies that it's easier to explain because it's software. And so they do such a good job of it. And then converting that idea into a service is where I see a lot of clients get hung up, like trying to explain it when they don't have a product. And it's not just like, this is a product that solves X. It's more of a service. They get hung up with feeling like they're selling themselves instead of selling a service. So where's that line there between starting with promoting yourself versus the service or the solution?
I think no matter how big the firm is, you should always focus on the solution, like always focus on the problem right out of the gate. Yeah. It's later in the sales process. So later on down the page, you can start to talk about yourself. because by then you've hooked them.
Yeah.
And, one of the best tools we use for this, it's a free tool anybody can download. It's called Inspectlet. And it's a really cool tool that you could have your web team add to your site. And it does like a video tracking of how people visualize your website. That's one piece it does. And then it also does some really cool things like heat map tracking. So it'll tell you like how far down the page
I love
people
those.
scroll. Yeah, it's so fun. We love it. And what's really cool is we try to gamify it. Like, okay, how can we get the before it turns cold blue? What else can we do to make that better? And you just have to keep working it, like changing headlines, changing interest. But what you're going to find is if you sell the solution first, you're going to always see that much better, of an uptick, and you're going to get better followers on social media. To tie it back to the social selling part, like you're going to have better social media when you're solving actual problems instead of saying, I'm so great, this is the awards our law firm have won. Like nobody cares. Like solve their problems, go big.
I wrote an article years and years ago about the Jacob Nielsen heat tracking. Like the way that eyes work through a website, and they did heat tracking in terms of where the eye starts out. And this is so core to not just websites, but just the way design works. This is for Western readers who read left to right. Your eye is going to start up in that top left corner. This is why we put the logo there. I've been doing this long enough. I've been doing this business for 16 years now that I've had people fight me and say they don't want the logo there. They want it over whatever. At the end of the day, this is why we start with the logo. It's a branding experience. You put that in the top left corner. And then your eye starts to move in sort of an F shape. So it might move over to the right a little bit, and then it moves down the page and moves over to the right and moves down to the right in sort of this F shape. And this is where you put the most important things. This is why you don't just like put a whole bunch of garbage over on the right side of the page. Like that's where you have nice, spacious, kind of empty space for people's eyes to rest. But there's a reason for all of this stuff. And there's a reason why we as designers and developers put things in the places that we do. It's because this is the way people read websites. And so we want to make sure that they're getting the most important information in the way that their eye is going to land on it. So what else do we need to, before we go to the book review, what else do we need to cover about conversions and social SEO and kind of pitfalls and myths and tips and tricks and anything else that you kind of wanted to make sure to cover before we get to that part?
A lot of times we also get customer clients that, they want to make everything pretty. Pretty doesn't really count so much. Conversions do. And if you look at the big companies like Amazon, and this is one of the things that we run into quite a bit, because the buy button or the call to action button, they wanted the prettiest color or something that blends in. Amazon has put a lot of thought and money and research behind it. Make it that yellow. It works for a reason.
Yeah, there's a reason for all the decisions. And you can guarantee when you look at major, billion-dollar websites like Amazon, Google, any of those, that they have done testing. They have spent millions of dollars making these decisions. It's not just like out of left field. Yeah. And so when you look at that and make those assumptions and then make your decisions based on those similar assumptions, Paul, did you have other stuff you wanted to add about conversions and thoughts and all that good stuff?
I think above the fold, and this is something we run into with the sites we look at and review, is like they don't have a strong call to action or even any call to action, like until you scroll all the way to the bottom. And then at the very bottom, that call to action is like contact us, which is very weak. So you want to have like something extremely strong. It could be a report that you're giving away. It could be some reason for them to contact you. It could be $100 discount, if you call us now, whatever the case is, like have a strong call to action to pull them in, because they're not going to just give up their info just because they want to join your newsletter. Like nobody does newsletters anymore. So don't offer that anymore. Like a lot of websites still do that. Like join our newsletter and you don't even know why you're having them join your newsletter because you don't email them, but that's a whole other thing. So, but email them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would add also in terms of a call to action, a lot of firms feel like they don't want to be salesy and they don't want to, do that whole discount, or they're really worried about that. And so in those cases, the call to action is not necessarily call for a discount or a free this or whatever. In those cases, it's a stronger, really solid call to action is call now so that we can solve that burning problem. Whatever that problem is, it should be more specific than that burning problem. It should be call now so that your business doesn't make a giant mistake, but it should be readdressing that initial problem that you talked about in a solution way so that they're like, oh, yes, I need you to help me with that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's critical.
Okay, so it is time for the Thought Leaders Library. Remember, our website has a curated collection of top book picks from our guests. And so, Paul, what's the one book you think every lawyer should have on their bookshelf?
I feel 100% The Ultimate Sales Letter by Dan Kennedy. It is such a phenomenal read, and it really covers like how do you make your content sound good for a human so that they convert, and how do you structure your content? How do you structure your sales pitch?
That is perfect for exactly what we were talking about in terms of like, don't relying on AI, but, you know, making sure that your message is converting. So what does he say that you really loved?
What I love is the constant reminder that you write to the customer, you write about them and their desires and their needs and not about the product or service. So too many times people focus on the service, like I'm solving this problem, boop, boop, boop. With a 30-minute call, we're going to do this. And like nobody cares. They just want to know what's in it for them. And so it was a great constant reminder. And, you know, it's what's great about it is it's timeless. Like we've been doing this for like 40, 50 years, like in the copy space, direct response space. And like, it's all about focusing on the people, like quit trying to analyze it, I think, too much. And we need to get back to the basics and focus on humans. And then your website's going to have better conversions and your social content. One of the things that we've seen on social media is, but I've seen this with lawyers. There is a lawyer that even my son watches on social media, on YouTube, just for fun, because this person makes it entertaining.
Gosh, that's like, crazy.
It's so crazy. And there's some lawyers that are afraid to do this, but like he just shares funny legal advice. So he'll be like, so you got caught speeding. What do? You know, here's the 5 things to do. And like he list them all out. There's several lawyers I know that have crushed it at this, like just absolutely crushed it with marketing through social media. And they're just keeping it entertaining, but they're sharing stuff people want to know.
Well, exactly. That's it. That's exactly it. Sharing things people want to know. While you were describing that, I was thinking of immigration law, because what I've seen over and over is law firms, when you first land on their sites, it's a immigration firm specifically, it's a list of all these different forms. Is it a this kind of a visa? Is it a that kind of a whatever? And it's basically like, we are box fillers. All we do is fill out this form and you're going to pay us, you know, $95 or whatever the case might be. And you basically have turned yourselves into like a sandwich shop where people are walking in and ordering a sandwich versus being an expert. And we are not filling out boxes. We are not filling out forms. We are here to give you the life that you want in this country. And we are bringing your families together. We are solving your job. You know, it's a totally different story when you're talking about the story behind why they're there to fill out those forms. So when you're doing searches for just these forms and then you land on the website and it's like this K1 visa, this kind of visa, that like that is not like, yes, you do that and people do want those forms filled out, but that's not why they're coming to you. There's a whole story you're missing, and that's the presentation that lands totally differently.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, you nailed that.
Awesome. That book, The Ultimate Sales Letter, we will put on the show page and the show notes and in the library, and we'll link to all that good stuff because that sounds, I love Dan Kennedy and he has a way of explaining it so well. So it's like, it can be tricky and it feels like this fine line between explaining what you do, but explaining kind of the story and the why and kind of talking to a human in a good way.
Yeah.
So Shreya, what's a big takeaway that you'd like people to get from the overall episode?
Don't forget the past, right?
Yes.
Whether it comes with SEO, whether it's like leading with value, leading with actual stories, right? People want to connect with you. They don't want AI. You could use AI, but they absolutely want to connect with you. And Google tells us exactly what's going to happen to people that copy and paste because it happened for the website people, right?
Yes.
So don't forget the history. It's going to repeat itself, but you're going to be smarter because you already know the trends. You already know what's going to happen and you're going to do it the correct way.
Right. But we've seen this over and over. Like in my bajillion years of doing this, there's been different versions of this. Like we've gone through all these different versions of SEO and, you know, the rules around SEO and people trying to game it and then getting punished for it. Once again, people trying to game the whole AI system and they're going to get punished for it. So I feel like that is such an awesome lesson. Go back to that past. What is it that really truly works? Not this game, golden ticket, like magical thing. What, you know, the client personas and figuring out your, you know, defining all that stuff that is the real solution you're providing doesn't have anything to do with AI.
Yeah.
Right?
Not at all.
Awesome. Yeah. Shreya Banerjee and Paul Counts, we are going for this to be the next biggest episode. So we're going to promote this one like crazy so that we can overpower the one from 2.5 years ago. But thank you so much. This was such an awesome episode.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Counsel Cast podcast. Be sure to visit our website at counsel-cast.com for the resources mentioned on the episode and to give us your feedback. If you enjoyed this episode, I would appreciate if you could rate and review the podcast on Apple and subscribe to your favorite podcast platform. See you on the next one.